learned how to do, amongst a lot of other work, like business strategy, all of that. So if you are new to my world, I see a couple of new names here and I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Erin Vazquez and I'm a master certified neurolinguistic programming life coach. I'm also a timeline therapy practitioner and a hypnotherapist. And all of that is to say is what I'm really interested in is using the power of language married with the unconscious mind to reprogram your unconscious mind so that you can consciously go after the work, the life, the relationship, the career that you truly want to go after. And I do that specifically with creatives because I believe that creatives um, are incredibly special, but we are in my experience has been, and with many of my private clients, they have been told and limited from a very young age. There's the whole like zeitgeist of the broke artist, of the addicted artist, all this stuff. And what I found is the artists who like heal themselves and do the work and do the integration work, they find ways to really go out there and live that life of purpose and meaning instead of being in a life where you're disconnected. And like if there's this gap between your purpose and your soul knowing of what you're here to do and then how you're living in this gap, there's a lot of numbing out, there's a lot of weird behavior, and it just lessens the quality of life and can even in some cases be fatal. I've seen that where people take their own lives either directly or through addiction or whatever it is. And it's because of this gap. And in this gap is emotional trauma. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. So I've been doing this for 4 years, but right now I've decided to do these weekly-ish workshops because I think we're at a very special time in history right now where the paradigm is shifting. And I know it's time for humans, especially artists, to take back their sovereignty of mind, body, and soul. And boundaries is a really beautiful way to do that. You get to be your own authority. No longer is anyone going to tell you, like, sign your permission slip, give you like an A or an F or anything, you have to become your own authority and give yourself permission to do what it is that is in your heart to do in your life. And in order to do that, we do have to separate ourselves from other people's thoughts, feelings, actions, and ideas of what is appropriate for us. So in boundary work, there's some pain and challenge for some people. It's separating ourselves from the expectations or the legacies of our families. Like, how many people know a lawyer who's absolutely miserable, but they went into the family law practice because, that's what the family does. But in their heart, they just really want to like live by the coast and paint a bunch of pictures or, like paint a bunch of paintings. We all know versions of that story, and we might be versions of that story. I was for quite some time. so so boundaries are a great tool for sovereignty. That is the theme that I'm building on this year, and all of my weekly workshops are building upon themselves. So today we're doing boundaries. Here we are. And I wanted to start out, and you'll see that I look at my notes a lot because we go through a lot, and I want to stay on task. So okay. I wanted to start out with the definition of boundaries, and there's a lot of different definitions, but there are two that really piqued my interest. One is that boundaries are a way to show people how they can best love you. And I think that's a really great definition. But when I was further considering why are boundaries so powerful? Like, why has it been so impactful in my life and in the lives of my clients and students over the years? And it's because of this other definition that really helps that separation. And boundaries are limits that people set in order to create a healthy sense of personal space. Now, this can be applicable to anyone, but I made this boot camp specifically about empaths and introverts because these are kind of ethereal situations. But as an empath, if you're here as an empath, you energetically sense things. And it's hard to, until you consciously acknowledge your skills and your gift of like sensing things energetically, you might not know that there has to be boundary set with that. And I know for me, I gaslit myself forever, like saying like, that's crazy. Like it's crazy that you would think that being, at a dinner with two other people for too long is really draining. It's not crazy. It's the way I'm designed. And if it's if it's a certain kind of person, if it's an energy vampire, then it's certainly not crazy. And then I get to draw the boundary of like, oh, like maybe time with this person doesn't serve me, but we'll get into the specifics later. So I'm touching on this a little bit. Why is this important, especially for like artists and creatives who tend to be empathic? Um, Introversion, extroversion, that's not as like exclusive to artists. I've worked with all kinds, but the empath, the beautiful gift of an artist can be, they can be in a situation and sense something imperceptible, but it'll like inspire an entire novel or a triptych or a photography concept. That's the really, really beautiful thing. But the shadow side again is like, if you're taking on other people's ideas, especially if they are limited ideas in your consciousness field, and this can be on technology, this can be with your family, this can be with your friends, this can be in your relationships. If you're taking that on subconsciously, it's going to limit the decisions that you make. I always say in my group, you can only control three things. And those three things are your own thoughts, your own feelings, and your own actions. We can't tell somebody else, like, hey, like, don't doubt my vision in myself, you know what I mean? But we can control how we react to other people's doubts, and understanding that we might be perceiving it at an unconscious level and allowing ourselves for that to be like the truth and a reality of who we are, even though it doesn't quote unquote make sense. Like you have to understand, like, my domain is in the unconscious mind. We're working a lot with unconscious phenomena, which is antithetical to the logic that we have all been trained and programmed to adore and obey and trust blind, well, not blindly, like there's good stuff about it, but it's just understanding energetically that if we're perceiving these little limits or judgments, it's going to affect our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. And for a lot of people, that means doing the thing like going into the career that you hate, or suppressing your emotions, or being really scared to put yourself out there in an authentic way with your art and your craft. So stifling yourself and thereby stifling your opportunities to truly connect with people who want to exchange money for your work, so you don't have to be a broke artist. So like I'm here talking to the people who want to be prosperous artists, whatever prosperity means to you. So um so when you're taking on other people's emotions or being highly tuned into them, and if you're not aware of it, you're going to be making decisions off of their needs, their desires, their judgments, their perceptions, their model of the world. And then you're saying yes when you actually want to say no. Resentment is building and creativity is stifled when you have that like resentment in your heart, and especially in intimate situations around your house, job, whatever it is, and your life quality goes down. I don't like that for you or for myself. So how do you know when to set a boundary? For me, what I found, and for my clients and students, is when your space, time, or desires are being violated, and we'll go into specific examples. When you notice that something was once working, like there might be a schedule or a routine that you have with your spouse or a business partner or a coworker or a friend, and it used to work, but now you're noticing something doesn't work. So you get to create a new boundary around time, around responsibilities, around expectations, around agreements. When you notice resentment creeping in, a negative emotion is a sign that something gets to heal, shift, release, or resolve. So in the context of boundaries, usually that negative emotion is showing you that something gets to shift, and maybe an old way of doing something gets to resolve, and a new boundary gets to be set. And also your priorities are falling down the list of your own list while you're taking care of everyone else. So we'll talk about people pleasing, which is often a trauma response to chaotic childhood households or narcissistic caretakers. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about are different types of boundaries. I'm going to go through four. There's one that is pretty obvious. There's like sexual boundaries, like let's respect each other. I'm not going to go into the specifics of that. I want to go into these like kind of in terms of energy and preserving your energetic force field, as you know. Yeah. So the first kind of boundary is like physical boundaries, and we're talking about personal space. If we're empathic, if we run energy, if we're a highly sensitive person, personal space is really, really important to us. You might find yourself needing like a beautiful space. You might find yourself feeling so much more energetic after cleaning out your space and getting rid of clutter and stuff like that, because you're going to sense the energy that's really being like stuck on there. Comfort with touch. I I have a best friend from childhood, and she's extroverted and she's outgoing, and when she meets you she says, I'm a hugger, right? And it's so friendly and you're like, oh, okay, I better hug. But like if you have a personal boundary and you're not a hugger and you want to shake hands, or in the time of COVID, whatever it is for you, the elbow bump or whatever, then you get to say like, like know that that's your boundary, that you are not comfortable just hugging anyone. And also as an empath, trust those little energetic signals. If you're getting like just a little bit of a red flag, I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but like trust yourself, really trust yourself. Again, we're talking about sovereignty, we're talking about being our own authority. All right. So physical boundaries are also saying like resting, eating, and hydrating. Last weekend, I make juice for myself every day. And last weekend, I got really overzealous with the ginger. And what I learned is that there's too much ginger, you get sick, you get physically ill. And I was supposed to like do a bunch of gardening and watch our toddler and all of that. And I had to draw a boundary right there and say, I'm going to go lay down for a little while, and just let that be okay. So physical boundaries, again, that's personal space, comfort with touch, resting, eating, hydrating, how you let people in and out of your space. I had to set a boundary with my mother-in-law, who loved to just like walk into rooms with closed doors. She liked doing that, and that was not okay with me. So the way we set boundaries in a loving way, and there will be a couple of examples for every kind of boundary that I talk about, it's not blaming the other person, it's not belittling the other person, it's not apologizing for what you need or what you desire. It's being really clear, like understanding what it is that you need, so that when you communicate the boundary, there's no like gray area or room for interpretation for the recipients of this information. And so it could sound something like, I'm feeling tired, so I'm going to rest now. And notice how there's like really no invitation for dialogue or debates. That's what I had to do with Gingergate last weekend. And and the other person can really know what's going on, instead of saying like, like, I know, like, this doesn't feel right because this wouldn't happen in my own personal situation. Like, you always want me to do yard work, but today I got to do something for me. Like that's, like you don't want to blame the other person. You just want to be clear and concise and loving too. And you're coming from a space of love for yourself, because once you start loving yourself, other people will see, they'll know that they can follow suit. Boundaries and the way that you want to be treated starts with you. And I'll talk about that a little bit with people pleasing. Also, another thing is like, I don't want a hug, a handshake is fine. Again, just really clear and straightforward. Now, some of these examples are going to be about how we interact with other people, but as an empath, you're also, and especially if you're an introvert, you're also going to be setting boundaries with like some of your actions and some of your decisions around space. Okay. So physical boundaries around space is trusting your, oh cool, we got some more people coming in. Some of the things around space is, or physical boundaries, is really trusting that empathic, like energetic talent that you have, and knowing like, if there's a space that doesn't feel good to you, like a restaurant that doesn't feel good to you, or a bar or cafe, like honoring that, like creating that boundary and saying like, maybe this doesn't make sense, but I'm going to go somewhere else. We did this when we were house hunting, when we were still stationed in Colorado Springs. My realtor probably thought I was like crazy, but we would pull up to a house and there would be this feeling like kind of in my solar plexus. So also start to get to know yourself and where these sensations, like, and this information is coming in for you, and trusting that energy. I would get a feeling in my solar plexus, and then it would like feel congested right here at my breastbone. And if that feeling came up, I was like, we're not even going in that house. And he'd have to call the other realtor and do all the things. And, but it's trusting and knowing. And then the house that we did buy, I'm going to mute you. The house that we did buy, I knew as we were walking up onto the porch, like my heart was expanding and expanding and expanding. And I had made the decision beforehand that we were putting in the offer that night before even walking into the house. And that's empathy, that's intuition, that's those fine-tuned kind of things that either you can gaslight yourself and tell yourself that you're crazy, or you can run with it and know who you are and claim your own sovereignty. And those are some of the non-interpersonal examples that you can use with physical boundaries. Okay, space, places. You can feel it in cities. Have you ever been really drawn to the energy of a city or another city, and you're just like, I can't be here. I lived in Denver for a really long time, and now like when I go back, there's something like I can't do it anymore. Okay. The another kind of boundary is emotional boundaries for you empaths. You guys, this is like so huge. So huge. And I want you to know that your feelings get to be honored. Again, you can only control three things: your own thoughts, your own feelings, and your own actions. Your feelings determine your actions, okay? Your actions determine literally your reality. So they are so closely related. Like, think about, like, if you take action in a feeling of expansiveness, of lightness, of self-assuredness, that's going to be a different action, a different decision, creating a different reality than if you take action from an emotion of self-doubt or limitedness, right? That's going to create a different decision and a different reality as well. Your feelings get to be honored. You get to defend them and nurture them and protect them in a really great way. Okay. So, these boundaries look like honoring your feelings and your energy. Again, if you notice that a certain situation, place, thing, person is draining your energy, start looking at that. All right. And I know it can be painful and a little bit scary, because some of you are going to be thinking about family members. Some of you are going to be thinking about friendships that you've had for a really long time. Some of you might be looking at relationships, and it's scary. It's scary to look at these things. I know. So knowing your emotional and energetic capacities, I know for me that I am energetically available, say for like a client call, for an hour and a half tops, a minute over, and we're looking at some major like burnout. Okay. I know that I'm energetically available for my son for a really, really long time. And knowing these different capacities, knowing that after a full day with my 2-year-old, that I am going to have to draw a boundary, come back out to my office and do some meditation and some alone time and some recharge so I can show up the next day and do it again. Emotional boundaries, sharing and not sharing. We'll get into this in just a second because I have a couple of things to say about that. And it looks like validating feelings of others and validating your own feelings and respecting their ability to take in emotional information, and also letting other people know that you may or may not be available for taking in emotional information or information that creates certain emotions that drain you energetically. So this could look like, I'm sorry you're having a difficult time. I'm not in a place to receive this right now. Can we come back to it? I have a friend slash colleague, and the first time she did this, it blew my mind. She called me and said, I'm going through some stuff right now. Are you in a space where you can help me process it? And I was like, oh my God, asking permission, that's absolutely amazing. And what's so beautiful is if she gives me that phone call and asks me that questions and I say, no, like I'm not in that space right now, she honors it and we move along, and it's beautiful and it's respectful and it makes me feel so incredibly safe. And when you give that to other people, including yourself, makes you feel safe. It makes other people feel safe around you as well. So there's a couple of things that I want to say about this, especially one thing about sharing and not sharing. Really sensitive people are probably mostly highly, highly sensitive as children, because especially in the first 7 years, we're not programmed into our limitations quite yet. There's plenty of people trying to program us into those limitations unless we're brought up in a very, very special way. But we're open, and those empathic abilities, that strong intuition, as children, we're open. And then what happens is a lot of adults don't understand it. Our caretakers, our teachers, our authority figures don't necessarily understand because they're coming from a place of their own limitations. It's nothing bad, it's nothing wrong. This isn't to blame anybody, okay? But what happens is that as highly empathic, intuitive, sensitive people, we're not necessarily seen as children. And that's a trauma, basically, to not have our own experience validated. And that can go over into people pleasing, but it can also go into information overshare because we want to be authentic and we want to really connect in a way that we didn't get to connect way back in the day. Now, there's a couple of things with this. It could be violating other people's emotional boundaries, but also it's opening up people's perception of you in a way that's going to allow in probably foreign and darker energy, kind of like a needy thing. So you want to be able to protect and distinguish what you decide to share and what you decide not to share with others, right? Because you don't want to open yourself up to these situations and judgments and perceptions of others. Because again, being an empath, if you pick that up and you start playing into other people's limitations, that's definitely not good. So sharing and oversharing. And the opposite of oversharing as a trauma response is shutting off and like putting the wall up between you and the world, okay? So just kind of be aware of where you're at on that spectrum. Um, I think I think with how technology is in our life, I wanted to talk about technology with emotional boundaries because social media, the major social media platforms are set up in a way, I'm sure you've all seen the social dilemma. It's set up in a way to create an emotional response, and a certain emotional response around fear, panic, anger, these lower vibration emotions that are not going to allow you to take your own sovereignty, to be in your own power, to be your own authority. When you drop into fear or anger or get into arguments with someone on the interwebs or on social media, you're not giving energy to yourself, to your vision, to your talent, to your passion, to your purpose. So um, I have pretty strict practices around social media. I don't have social media on my phone. I actually have it on another phone that I rarely use. Um, and then also with Facebook, I'm very particular. Well, all the social medias, I'm very particular about whom I follow, what groups I'm in, and how long I'm on there. And I don't allow technology into my bedroom at night. Like, it's only books, and just really paying attention and honoring when I feel drained or if something is coming through. If we are empathic, it doesn't matter if we're looking at someone's rant on the opposite side of the world, or we're picking up on someone's like nasty energy or doubt or limitations. If they're on the other side of the world, if you're empathic, you are going to pick up on it if you're allowing that into your field. So I really invite you to be conscious and intentional when you go onto social media and use technology. I'm not saying like cut it out completely, because it's a beautiful tool. A lot of you here, I know because of Facebook. Some of you are in my Facebook group. I love my Facebook group. I've put in the energy of making it a beautiful space where we can have fun and be inspired. And I love going to my Facebook group and showing up there, but I show up like at certain times when I'm ready and able to be there intentionally. Um, so just having that intention. um Emotional boundaries also look like when you're talking with someone else is like, um I don't know if you guys have this, but I have family members who want to send me articles about current events, and even if I agree with the perspective or the stance of these articles, i I don't feel safe with these just coming into my inbox. So I've asked people to please stop sending me things and to trust that I'm receiving information in a way that serves my highest and greatest good. And people are like, don't you want to be informed? Don't you want to be informed? That goes into what to look out for with emotional boundaries, and knowing how your emotional boundaries might be dismissed or like violated. Dismissing of feelings. Again, as young children, we need our reality and our experience to be validated. And so often it's just not like, like you have the imaginary friend and someone's like, oh, they're not real. Well, to the child, it's real. And and we should not put our limitations on these children with their infinite imaginations, or dismiss anyone else's feelings, or allow anyone to dismiss our own feelings. The people who come into my world and say, oh, don't you want to be informed? Don't you want to be informed? It's like, I am, and I can tell you want me to be informed in the exact same way you are, and that's not my responsibility. I'm not here for that. Asking people to justify feelings. So if people are asking you to justify your feelings, it's time to set a boundary and let them know that you're not available for that. People assuming that they know how you feel, or you assuming how other people feel, or just emotional dumping, which we talked about. Okay, so the emotions, and since they're not real and since they're not tangible, I know I second guessed myself. I gaslit myself for the first 35 years of my life. And I'm here to tell you, your emotions are real, your feelings are valid, your experience is valid. And especially as an empath, someone who senses energy, just get with it and start trusting that this paradigm of only trusting what comes to us in the third dimension, it's shifting away. If you want to get your sovereignty, if you want to be self-authored, if you want to use this paradigm shift to start building that creative life that you absolutely love, it's time to start trusting those little energetic pieces of information, and then they'll get bigger and bigger. And next week, actually a week from Monday, I'm going to do a workshop on your unconscious mind so you can understand it more, because it's your unconscious mind that's going to really give you that authority and trusting it and understanding it more. Okay. Another boundary is time boundary. So this is around work, around home, around social. Knowing your priorities. When you're setting time boundaries, knowing your freaking priorities. Is it health, career, creativity? What is it? Prioritizing and scheduling, all right, and sticking to those schedules and not overcommitting to yourself. Again, at the beginning, I was talking about like if if you're if you have sloppy boundaries, you're going to be saying yes to things when you really want to say no, and you're doing it because you think you should, and then resentment sets in, and then resentment like kind of takes down your like emotional vibration, and it's just like kind of a downward spiral from there. Okay, so time boundaries are going to sound like, I can't come to that event this weekend. Do you have time? I'd love to. And for you, if you're an artist and you are building a business out of your creativity, or you're self-employed, or if you're a coach, this is like, this is huge. I would love to help you with that. My fee is blah blah blah. So many of my clients get like, hey, would you like to do this to build your portfolio? And that is not appropriate. I never encourage my students or clients to be available for that, but making that time boundary. So what you want to look out for is being asked to work without pay, having time be demanded of you, or keeping people or being kept in conversations or on tasks longer than what was originally agreed upon. Again, the key thing with your time is knowing what your priorities are. And then also, I just want to like hammer this home. Time is our number one non-renewable resource. We can always get more money, we can always get more energy, but we can never get our time back. So start really paying attention to how it's precious to you and how you want to spend it and how you feel after certain activities and hanging out with certain people. All right. And then the last one that I really wanted to dig into is intellectual boundaries. So this is respect for ideas, respect for curiosity. This is something that, you know, I do the emotional clearing work with a lot of my clients, and their curiosity so often was not respected. You know, as adults, I get it now, like you're tired, you have all this stuff, and this kid is like, let's, you know, what's this, what's that, what's this, what's that, and we don't have time for it. But that's a little, you know, a trauma that many of us have sustained, and our curiosity was shut down, when curiosity is one of the most opportunity expansive states of empowerment that you can be in, and that ideas be respected and not belittled. I remember telling my parents when I was 6 years old that I wanted to be an artist, and their immediate reaction was, you know, artists do drugs and it's hard to make money. That's what they told a 6 year old. And I think they did it out of love because they wanted me to not be in poverty and probably not be a heroin addict. That really makes sense, you know? But at the same time, like, there's a different way to handle that statement, like, oh, like, let's start looking at artists who did this and they went to this school, maybe they set up their business that way, or they were successful. There's different ways of looking at it. So when I was thinking about intellectual boundaries, it came to me that it really is important to kind of protect our thoughts. Um, there's a saying in my industry, and it is 99% support is 100% sabotage. And as an empath, again, if you're putting your idea out there to someone who doesn't get it or doesn't believe in it, and if you're unconsciously picking up their limitations or their ideas and unconsciously integrating it into your thoughts, feelings, and actions, you're going to be in a limited spot, right? So you kind of, I'm not saying like don't ever tell anyone your ideas ever, but use that beautiful gift of empathy and understanding where other people are coming from to be really like use discernment with the people that you speak to about your dreams and your hopes and your vision for your life. And if you find out later on that they're disrespecting your ideas, or or don't have faith in it or are belittling you in some way, you either get to set that boundary with them or just let them, leave your life, basically. And then again, you need to respect your ideas. Also, again, the boundaries start with you. So if you have an idea and a vision, and there's that little bit of self doubt or an inner voice saying like it'll never work because of X, Y, and Z, that's not an indication that your dream is impossible or unworthy or anything like that. It's probably an indication that you have some clearing work to do and some looking at that voice and what it is and whose voice is it really. Is it a parent's? Is it a teacher's? You know what I mean? And again, we're not here to blame the parents. We're not here to blame the teachers. It is what it is. We're here to look at the tools and the resource in a different way of thinking so that you can be sovereign and free and authorize yourself to go live the life that you were meant to live from a place of prosperity and purpose and joy. Okay. So, and so this can look like I can respect we have different opinions. And also another really important thing to know is that again, separating ourselves from other people's ideas of what's possible, of what's cool, of what's feasible, of what's going to be good in the market. I was just listening to Jamie Kern Lima on the School of Greatness podcast. And for years and years and years, everyone told her that her idea for makeup was stupid. And she just had this unquestioned knowing in the pit of her stomach, and she kept on going. And then her business eventually was acquired by L'Oreal for $1.2 billion, right? But she had to really believe in herself. So if we come up against sloppy intellectual boundaries and we start taking on other people's like limitations as our own, there's some inner work to do. And if you need help with that, look at my past workshops and keep on coming to the weekly workshops because it just builds on itself. Okay. So let's see if there's anything else I want to say about those 4 different types of boundaries. Yeah, I know you don't understand, but I'm not available to be dismissed like that. I feel like that's been my mantra as I'm coming into my own power. It's not the people around, it's not their job to understand what I'm doing. It's my job to take like aligned faith rooted action toward my vision for my life every single day. And if I sense that 99 or less percent support, really looking at, is there a boundary I need to draw? Okay. I want to really hammer home that all of these things, it starts with ourselves. Our external world is a reflection of our internal world. And once we respect ourselves and love ourselves enough to understand that we're totally safe, worthy, whole, and complete to receive the benefits of these boundaries, to make it okay that we're totally safe, that we have the time, that we have the space, that we have the structure in our life to go after what it is that we desire, our external world will have no choice but to reflect it back to us. So a lot of it is doing that inner work and knowing that you're totally safe. I'll tell you, when I first started setting boundaries, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, it was really difficult and very scary. But I will tell you, it gets easier and then it gets intoxicating. And I want to say it like, always do it from a space of love, not from a space of like, you did this and then you did that and that, like, not that, like from a space of like, I love myself. And if it's someone that if you're setting a boundary with someone that you want to like keep in your life, remind them like, I'm setting this boundary because I want to keep you in my life. So let's talk about it. Now, if you set a boundary with someone and they violate it, or they're unwilling or unable to adhere to that boundary, okay, again, you can only control your own thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? So if they lay down their hand and say, I'm unwilling or unable to respect this boundary, then you can only control how you respond to that information. And that might look like making a change or letting someone in your life go. Okay. So, so just knowing that you're worthy, knowing that you're safe, and all of that good stuff. So let's talk about people pleasing. This goes into what I was saying. You need to love yourself first. You got to do it. No one can love yourself more than you do. And the world is going to respond to that. And there's affirmations, there's meditations, there's journaling, there's these workshops that are essentially bringing you back to the source of all love and knowing that you were born with, okay? You need to spend time with your mission, vision, and values and give it energy. Like, make your mission and your vision for your life with your creativity, with your passion, way bigger, way more important than making an unaligned decision where you're pleasing someone else to make yourself small. Give that mission, vision, and your values a lot of energy. I did a past workshop on this. If you want support with that, just let me know in the chat box and I'll send it to you. The replay and the workbook to you. Usually there's workbooks with these workshops. I didn't get to it this week, but they're usually pretty awesome. Okay, so spend time with your mission, vision, values. Make it way bigger than any need to obligate yourself to something that doesn't ultimately serve your highest and greatest good. Know that you're worthy, healthy, whole, and complete, and totally safe. I've said it several times, but I want you to know it at a deep, deep level. Do the emotional healing work, do the trauma work, whether it's psychotherapy, whether it's timeline therapy, whatever calls to you. There's so many modalities and ways to support people in going through the healing journey and whatever resonates with you, okay? And things to know and expect when you set boundaries. You have to embody the boundary, which I talked about. And if someone doesn't honor the boundary, that's information. That is information. People come into our lives for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. So a lot of people came into my life for a reason. And I'm thinking about, like, when I really buckled down on the boundary work, their reason was to show me the wounds behind the people pleasing, how dangerous it was to not have any like safe or healthy boundaries anymore. And yeah, they were in there for that reason, and they're no longer in my life, and it's okay. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm grateful to them, because boundaries are empowering. Yeah, and it gets easier and easier. Okay, so with that said, let's go to the winner. I have time for Q&A, you guys. If you have any, Dan, I have a question about self-love, how to love yourself. Okay, I'm gonna unmute you, or ask you to unmute and tell me more.
Hi there.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for being here.
That's okay. Yeah. I've struggled since childhood. Self-love, how to love myself. It's something I crave for every day on a daily basis. It's something I don't know where to start, how to start. Looking in the mirror, saying "love you" to myself doesn't feel real. I don't trust myself, I think, and don't trust others.
Don't trust yourself, and you don't trust others. And so one thing I would say that actually trust yourself when you feel that looking in the mirror doesn't feel like the right thing for you at this point, right? So like trust that first, and know that there's going to be a different method. When there is a lack of trust in yourself and in others, there's a disconnection from a knowing, like a higher knowing, so that you were born with, right? And there are things that you can do to go back and reparent yourself. So this is something that anyone can do. All right, here's a really, really great exercise. Often we don't trust ourselves because our emotional needs weren't met as children, right? And I'm not here to blame. That's not the point. But as adults, the thing is that we can no longer depend on our parents to give us what it is that we needed in our childhood. And the childhood is in the past, but as adults, we're sitting here with all of the emotional scarring, doing all sorts of stupid shit and like acting from a limited spot. So what can we do? Well, one thing that we can do is a reparenting meditation. And what I would suggest that you do is get into a space, and really what you want to do is start breathing in through your nose and out through your heart. In fact, do you guys, I can do this right now. Are you guys up for a quick little group meditation? Are you up for that? Okay. All right. So I'm going to mute you again. Instead of like talking at you about it, I'm going to guide you through it. And then again, self authoring, being your own authority. Just because I say it, if it doesn't feel right for you, it doesn't, like, reject it if it doesn't work for you, accept it if it does. And then if you feel inspired to evolve this meditation or this experience in a way that feels right to you, that you're feeling called to do, again, sovereignty, self-authoring, being the authority of yourself. Do it. I'm here to offer tools, not to say that my way is the right way or the highway, but I want to give you this seed that you can start planting, that you can do before you do therapy or coaching or anything like that. Okay. So, all right, everyone, get comfortable. And if you have water, take a huge sip of water, because we're going to shift some energy. And this is a cleansing and a release. And let me get grounded for my emotional boundaries, because this is your experience. I'm just facilitating it. All right, everyone, please get comfortable and get all of your fidgets out, whatever fidgets are coming up to you right now. It's so fun how the ego is like, oh, you're about to heal, let me like create drama in the manifestation of your ear itching. Scratch your ear, flip your hair, whatever you need to do, like get it out of your system. And once you're grounded and in a seated, comfortable position, if you can, if you're able to put 2 feet on the ground, that is a very good thing. Grounding for empaths. Okay. And then what I want you to do is start breathing in through your nose. And as you breathe in, I want you to send like beautiful golden light to your heart. And then, so breathe in really, really deep, sending that beautiful golden light to your heart. And then I want you to exhale through your mouth. Let's do that again. Breathe in. And then let everything go. Let's do that one more time. A really beautiful deep inhale through your nose, sending beautiful golden light to your heart. And then exhale, letting it all go. Now what I invite you to do is start getting into your own rhythm. Go in through your nose, out through your mouth, your own rhythm of breathing. And notice your body, notice what you need to notice. And just breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, in through your nose and out through your mouth. And what I want you to do real quick is just consider your heart. Start paying attention to the rhythm of your heart and just consider the fact that your heart is always, always, always pumping energy and life force throughout your body, whether you're sleeping, whether you're awake, all of the time, creating tiny life-giving miracles every single second of the day. So I just want you to give your heart some love, some major gratitude, and feel into it. And now what I want you to feel into is the fact that that heart was given to you 6 weeks after you were conceived. You didn't have to prove anything. You didn't have to earn it. It was just given to you because you are worthy of it. And it has been giving you life, and it has been pumping even before you came into the physical manifestation of this world. So just give your heart some love and ground into the fact that you are totally safe, worthy, healthy, whole, and complete. Ground into that fact. And now what I want you to do is I want you to start considering that your heart and your unconscious mind are connected. And it doesn't really make sense that your heart would be performing all of these miracles all the time. But your unconscious mind is communicating with your heart, giving it the information that it needs in order to perform these miracles every second of every single day. Your unconscious mind doesn't necessarily make sense. And it's going to give you information that opens the door to healing, to transformation. And I'm going to ask you to trust your unconscious mind just as you trust it to have your heart beating all of the time. I want you to ask your unconscious mind, what is a moment in time as a child in my first 7 years, a moment in time where my inner child, where I was wounded, where there was a trauma, and trust the moment in time. It might not make sense. It might be real. It might not be real. It doesn't matter. Whatever your unconscious mind offers you right now, a picture, a moment in time. And I want you to see yourself as that child from the third person. You're looking at yourself as that child, as your adult self today, who you are right now. And I'm going to give you a second to get there. I'm going to give you a second to get there. And what I want you to do is that situation that the child is in, I want you to freeze that situation. So if it's a party, if there's chaos going on around, if there's a lot of movement, just freeze the situation except for the child. The child isn't frozen. And you walk in as your adult self. And you look at your child self and you say, "Hi, I'm you 30 years into the future," or whatever it is for you. And they say, "Whoa, hey." And you say to that child, "You are totally safe. And I am here to listen. And I am here to give you anything that you need." And sit down next to that child if that's what they want, or stand next to them, or walk next to them. And just ask them, "What do you need?" Trust exactly what that child says to you. And in this meditation, give it to them. I don't care if it's to punch the crap out of someone's face. I don't care if it's to ride horseback across the country. I don't care if it's to scream. I don't care if it's to cry. Ask, "What do you need?" and hold that container for that child. Give it to them. And let's all hold space for that right now, for whatever's coming up. So I'm going to be quiet here for about a minute or two. Trust the inner child. Trust and honor what they need. Give them what they need. And very often, after you give them what they need, they're going to want something else. You can create a different reality with them. Ask them, "What now?" Do you want to go eat 20 bowls of ice cream? Give them 20 bowls of ice cream. Do you want to go be the prettiest princess in the world? Let them go be the prettiest princess in the world. Do they need a different conversation with mom or dad? Give that to them in this meditation. And know that you can come back to this experience, to this meditation at any time. I'm going to give you another minute with your inner child. I want you to look at your inner child and ask, what's the best way to come back to you? How do you need me to show up? Because I'm coming back. This isn't the end. What are they telling you? This is where you make a promise to yourself and start building trust with yourself, because you're going to promise to come back in the way that they asked you to come back, and you're going to keep that promise because you are worthy of trust because of the actions and the decisions that you make. And by doing this, you will rebuild the trust in yourself. You will claim that authority. You will claim your power and your own knowing. So ask them one more time, how do you need me to come back to you? What do you need? Let them know I'm going to go right now, but I'm going to come back to you when and how. I'm promising you I'm going to do it. All right? Now what I want you to do is start bringing sensation back to your face, to your toes. Just kind of shake it out. Anything else you need to do to resolve. When you're ready, you can come back in the room and open up your eyes. And if you have any questions or want to say anything at the end, just hit me up in the chat box. So Dan, can I unmute you? Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay.
How was that for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's feeling the inner child was quite interesting. Never felt the inner child in that kind of way before. I've tried to connect before, but not in that kind of way. And it spoke quite clearly. And I found it an image from my past, from my childhood, really quickly.
Did you?
It took, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So we didn't go into that meditation for very long, but even in that short amount of time, when you're able to get that piece of information from your unconscious mind, again, being your own sovereign piece of, authority and knowledge and wisdom, being able to go there that quickly, knowing that you can go back and do that at any time, and making those promises in that space. And eventually, when that child is healed and you've given them all of the ice cream or allowed them to be, you're welcome, Tony, allowed them to, my ears just popped. Energy. Energy. I sage myself after these. So giving them everything they need without judgment. And I've gone into that meditation before, and I'm a lovely, peaceful person, but I've needed to be violent before. And it's just without judgment, giving them what they need, giving them the ice cream, allowing them to punch something, allowing them to be the most popular kid at school and live out that reality, and just going back and doing that again and again. Eventually, you can create the kind of relationship where you can start coaching that inner child and holding them accountable to you in certain age appropriate ways as well, and building that trust. because in the quantum world, time is just basically an illusion. So what you just experienced is very real. It's not imaginary, it's not woo woo, it actually is very real. So I wanted to take you guys through that experience. Again, there's no, I wanted to give you the foundation. If something inspires you and you want to modify it, or something comes up for you, trust it. Trust it. My word is not the end of the experience. You know what I mean? Like, you get to create it for yourself, okay? So, are there any other questions or anything else? I like to come. Oh, cool. All right, Tony. Cool. I'm curious, if if I unmute you, is there anything that you would add to this? And since this is your passion and your jam,
Well, hi. Can you hear me okay?
I can, Tony.
Excellent. Well, I found out that I was, I guess, highly sensitive. I've been following the works of Elaine Owen
Okay.
for a long time, about maybe 10, 12 years.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized that there was a scale that she had of both either being highly sensitive or being ultra sensitive. And I realized that being a bloke and being who I was, that it was quite unusual. But then I spent time before online, went to communities and learned a lot more about the fact that it's quite common. Men can be highly sensitive,
Yeah.
but more than that, the world that we live in doesn't quite. I'm not going to be a fatalist. The world that we live in doesn't quite get it, in the sense that um, everything we see on the news, everything that we see in real life, how things happen in work, etc., can be quite geared towards numbing you down. So, yeah, I've kind of known for quite a while. But online, I tend to share various things. I've got quite a few books on various things, but today's chat was brilliant. You actually explained it in a way that was very simple to understand, and it's always good to get a checkup. So, thanks so much
Mm.
for being and also the meditation was superb. But yeah, if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, it'd be good, because LinkedIn is quite a business. Well, it is a very business-based network, and there are a few people on there who are HSPs and empaths too. So I tend to share things with them and chat with them. But if you want to, if anyone wants to connect with me, then they can do so.
Yeah, I am, please, please, please go connect with Tony if you feel called to.
Absolutely.
In my group, in my Facebook group, I want people to connect in ways that feel called to them. And in these chats too, like, seriously, if we are coming together in some way and using the beauty of technology as a tool to connect with people, like, there's people on this call that are new to my world, and there's people on this call that have been in my world for quite some time, and it's all because of technology. There's not one person on this call that I've met in person. um, and I'm so grateful for that. So, like minds coming together. Tony, one thing that came up for me was, when you said being a bloke, uh, there's something that I've noticed. I work a lot with both females and males, and something that I've noticed in the last couple of years is a lot of dialogue around toxic masculinity without really offering the alternative of divine masculinity. And I know so many amazing men in my life, and I'm raising a little man right now, and I don't know, I don't know how to raise him,
Okay, well, I've
in an
actually, yeah,
integrated way,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
um
I've got kids myself. I've
yeah.
got three.
Oh,
So
I only have one.
yeah, I've got an adult child who's 18, and I've got a boy and girl twins who are 14. And they're, the eldest is, yeah, twins, boy and girl twins who are 14. And the twins are highly sensitive. The boy who's 18 is 2, but he's learning to control his fire. He's very much a very, I say fiery. He'll charge and do something and then think about it later, which is how I used to be. I'm very similar to him. Obviously, experience, tells. But certainly when you have children, and I've got 3 of them, and they're the homeschooled, you really have to let them guide you, because the way schools are in the UK, they're not really set up to be able to take on board the needs and the mentality and the gift that highly sensitives have of seeing the subtle things and going down a path and just finding it wonderful and literally just losing themselves in it, and you having to bring them back. So yeah, it is fun, but the schools over here aren't that great with that. I think there's a lot more knowledge about this subject, thanks to the research being done, but a lot of the ideas of empaths is very much, science fiction, and there's a change happening where people are realizing. I mean, I'm about to myself at some point soon have a website which is solely for male empaths and male HSPs. I've been following a lot of the work of some of them as well, and every wife, every mother, every sister would probably say, he's highly sensitive, please have a look at this. He needs to just chill out a bit. He needs to understand it's okay to cry. It's okay to get angry. It's okay to sometimes have a panic attack. It's okay to be able to do things. Think, oh my God, I'm in overwhelm. What's happening? It's okay. And there's not enough people out there who are doing that. But the media says, have a beer, have a lamb chop, have a pork pie, have a fight. Which everything's about competitive. And when you have I don't really call it the divine masculine. I tend to call it more the I tend just to call it being a man, because if we're able to think, act, feel, cry, help, honor our boundaries, honor other boundaries, and in that with females, honor their boundaries and they honor our boundaries, we are being everything we're here to be. And I think sometimes when I spoke to men in the past about this, it can get very, I call it woo-woo, and I like to say to them, right, here's a carnelian, here's a crystal, here's an amethyst. I have them, use them, ground yourself, wash thoroughly, eat spinach, have magnesium, have iron, and that's enough for a lot of people. So I try and keep it all nice and sort of so yes, I do hold crystals. I try and keep it very much grounded, and there's a lot of men kind of like go, whoa, the wife prefers that, she's into all that stuff, I'm sitting here watching this, and you're thinking, don't watch that because it's kind of really bad for you. You know how you can watch certain things on TV, animals getting hurt, people fighting, it causes issues with empaths. Right. So my challenge is to get men to understand that it's okay to not want to watch that, even though the blokes over there who are into their whatever you want to call it are calling you a sissy for not watching it. Tell them to forget it, walk away, honor your own boundaries.
And this is
for
and
man to do that, it's really hard.
About like the paradigm shift that that I'm really sensing in a huge way. And I think the empath, I think people are understanding that there's a different realm to consciousness and it's not so woo-woo, and they're really tapping into it. So thank you so much for
That's
sharing
fine.
all of that. I want to see what Sharon is sharing something of. Sharon is sharing. Let's see, I have always been told that I'm overly sensitive and have a tendency to overshare and absorb other people's traumas. I hate conflict, and I've spent the past 30 years and I feel totally overwhelmed and exhausted with no quality of life as a depression, anxiety. I mean, from myalgia, but you're in a position where you can take charge and significantly change your life. So Sharon, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. We get to take inventory of what's no longer working for us. And like when I got to the point where I had to do the thing that felt really hard, which was setting boundaries, it was because I had no choice. Like it was depression and anxiety, it almost took my life seriously. And And I was the person to overshare in the spirit of like, look, I'm being so authentic. Let's create these authentic connections and all of that. And really looking back on it, it was like, please see me for who I am. Like, and you might be experiencing that too. And I cannot speak to chronic disorders like fibromyalgia or anything like that, but there are some schools of thought that dis-ease is caused by significant emotional events and everything, and that it manifests physically in some ways, shapes, or forms. Again, I'm not a medical person. I don't have the authority to speak about these things, but if you hate conflict and there's an inner conflict and it manifests in a different way, you get to really take inventory of what's working and what's not working. And the reason that this can be difficult for some people is that it's painful to look at it. It's painful to look at this relationship might not be working, or this belief system might not be working. Everything that I thought up until now, everything that's informed my reality and my decisions up until now, it's no longer working. And at some level, that's a threat or a challenge to our own identity. And our ego is just like, no, like, please make me important. And even though on the other side of making these changes, of setting these boundaries, is a life full of health, purpose, prosperity, joy, mental health, all of that is also a part of the unknown. So if we are going into something that is unknown to us, our unconscious mind, and I'll go into this a week from Monday with the unconscious mind workshop, but if our unconscious mind is going to automatically file that away as danger, 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 just because it's unknown. So even though our unconscious mind wants what's the best for us, we have to train it into creating a new picture of the future, a new reality of the future. And that's why I said, please, please, please spend time with your mission, vision, values. Spend time crafting it until you feel that emotional charge, like either in your stomach or in your heart, or you're like so cellularly charged in your body that like what that person is going to think about you doesn't matter anymore, or the story of trauma in the past does not hold as much weight as the story of promise and possibility in the future. You have to train your brain to go into that future instead of being informed by the shit in the past, like it's and that's why it can be difficult, because as much as I try to break this down into really basic steps, it's simple, but I honor the fact that it's not necessarily easy, because we're letting go of things that we're comfortable with. And even though we're comfortable, it doesn't mean that it's good for us. So yeah. So yeah. And also, like, okay, so let's see, what else is going on? What else? So you have this chance, you're in a position where you can take charge and significantly change your life. You're moving to the coast where you don't know anyone, going to put my own health first and find myself again. So that's perfect. And what you get to do is totally reinvent yourself again, create that mission, vision, values. What values are you available to live by? What are you available for and no longer available for? And really doing that deep work, looking at that and that reflection, because I love the fresh start idea. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you don't take inventory, if you don't do the work, if you don't get honest and have some difficult conversations with yourself and evaluations of what's going on with you, then it's going to be that thing of like, no matter where you are or no matter where you go, there you are. But you're in this workshop. So obviously you're unavailable for a repeat of the past, and you're completely available for a new, healthful, well-integrated and prosperous and happy future for yourself. So like you wouldn't be spending time on a Saturday if you weren't available for a different future for yourself on a Saturday doing something like this, when most people are at brunch or, doing whatever. Like the people who show up for these workshops, I'm like, oh, you're available for change in your life, like, because time is precious. So I have felt and been treated like the child or in an abusive relationship, friendships, go back to that inner child meditation. If you want to go deeper, there's things like timeline therapy available for you. There's going to be, I'm still creating this because it's actually, this program is going to be unlike anything that I've ever done before. And it's actually me breaking into something that it's just like, this is it, like it's in my heart and I really want to honor it. So I'm taking time creating this program, but there will be a program coming up in the next couple of months where you can do that inner child work in a really deep and facilitated space. I can't make promises on when that's going to be released. And it's going to be like a small container too. I'm only accepting 10 people in, but go back, do that work, do that meditation that I gave you. It's powerful on its own. Okay. Yeah. And where on the coast, like the West Coast, where are you? And yes, that bravery. And remember, courage isn't courage because it's easy. Courage is courage because it's difficult and you're making changes and you're going into the unknown. So you guys, the replay is going to come out. Let's all congratulate Nick on being the winner for this week's prize. And I will contact you, Nick, and get all of that set up. You're in the UK, moving to Middleborough on the East Coast. I have spent I've been in Ireland. I will say that the countryside, I know, thank you guys for being here from across the pond. Did you guys find me on Locals? Or did you find me on Eventbrite? I'm curious. Locals is, oh, Eventbrite. Okay, cool. That's great. Yay, thank you, Eventbrite. Okay, so yeah, I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm going to send out the replay and also a link to my Facebook reviews. If you can leave a 5-star review and a recommendation for going to these, that really helps with my marketing and bringing more people in. And it's about more than marketing. It's about helping as many people as we possibly can go through and live their permission, give themselves permission to live their purpose and be who they were in this world. Because you guys, all of the fighting, all of the division is a macro function of micro fracturing. That's what it is. That's all it is. If people were in their purpose, gave themselves permission to like follow their God source and their higher source and higher purpose, all of this bullshit going on all over the place, we wouldn't have time for that. We just wouldn't have the energy for it. So with all of that being said, my time is up. I'm setting the time boundary. I love all of you and thank you for being here, and have a really, really beautiful day. And hopefully I see you a week from Monday, okay? All right, bye everybody.